Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories.
In the 2013 year, this video appears on the network. The girl enters the elevator. She frantically presses buttons, moves her hands, jumps out of the cab, hides in a corner, creating a situation that can be described with all adjectives at once in the interval between strange and frightening. After a few minutes, it will disappear from the frame. After a few hours, it will disappear altogether. What happens next will be one of the major internet investigations of the decade. Conspiracy, mysticism, gossip will multiply, acquiring new mysterious details thanks to sofa detectives and amateur experts. And these people can be understood. A missing girl named Elisa Lam, as the police will find out on January 31st, 2013, went into the building behind my back and literally disappeared without leaving it. And even in spite of all this, the incident would not have become so famous if it was the first such incident in this building. Over the past 90 years, maniacs have lived here, mysterious murders have been committed, and unexplained events have occurred. This is the story of how a thriving building in the business district of Los Angeles became a cursed place called a hotel named Death. This is the story of the Cecil Hotel. So, this is the 31st of January, 2013, downtown business district of Los Angeles. Elisa Lam is 21. She is a student from Canada on a long-awaited trip to the west coast of the USA. Alice arrived by bus from nearby San Diego and spent several days in Los Angeles. In January 2013, everything looked almost the same here, in the sense of the same sunny. A little cooler than 15 or 17 degrees, but in a word, it was the kind of weather that makes every person who grew up in northern latitudes give up everything immediately and stay here forever. Elisa behaves like an ordinary tourist who came to the City of Angels. For example, on the day of her disappearance, she goes to this store called the Last Bookstore, which can be translated as the Last Bookstore. Here she makes several purchases and worries that all of them will not fit in the luggage. Later, the employee of the bookstore will remember that Alice seemed to her a little shy girl. In the evening of the same day, Elisa Lam is noticed by the hotel staff in the lobby. Then, everything that numerous forum users will discuss for several years will happen in the elevator. Immediately after these shots, the girl will disappear. However, the web detective will not start immediately. The famous video will get online only a couple of weeks after the incident, and during this time the following will happen. 7 days after the disappearance, the Los Angeles police are holding a press conference. On it, detectives are asking for help from anyone who has information about the whereabouts of a 21-year-old girl from Canada, Elisa Lam. A week before that, she stopped contacting her parents, although until that moment they called each other every day. On the recordings from this press conference, Alice's parents and her sister can be seen behind the detectives. They had flown in from Toronto and had been helping the police with the search for several days. The relatives of the police expected that the press conference would cause a resonance in the media and help shed light on what happened. However, this did not happen. In her native Canada, Elisa Lam's case is getting a lot more attention. In Los Angeles, the disappearance of a single girl is not something that happens every day, but it is clearly not uncommon. Local media quickly find more interesting topics, and Elisa Lam's name disappears from the media space. But a week later, something will happen that will make this story one of the most discussed mysteries of the decade. The Los Angeles Police Department publishes footage from surveillance cameras in the elevator. The recording was made on the 1st of February, almost immediately after midnight. The frightening 3 minutes and 59 seconds can still be easily found on YouTube. Just type Elisa Lam elevator in the English search. Let's go through the main points. The girl enters the cabin, presses the buttons or several buttons at once. She leaned a little strangely, but it can be explained. Elisa Lam was wearing glasses in all the photos. She has poor eyesight, so she leaned closer to look. The first really strange moment happens 10 seconds later. After a short pause, the girl cautiously approaches the door and sharply looks around. Then she will stop in the corner. So far, it looks like Alice saw someone in the hallway. She was very scared and is now hiding from him. There is another pause, after which the girl cautiously goes out into the corridor. About the second minute, the most frightening thing begins. Alice Lam makes a strange, if not terrible, movement with her hands. Then she stands in the corridor, and 2 minutes and 30 seconds after the recording starts, she exits the frame spoiler. The remaining 1.5 minutes on the frames will be only an empty cabin and an elevator door that first closes and then opens. Without any presence of people in the frame. This strange recording from the elevator is gaining millions of views in just 10 days. And this is the 2013th year. To gain millions of views then is like tens of millions today. And this can be understood. The video itself resembles a low-budget, semi-amateur horror movie, but very fascinating. And the realization that there is a real person in the frames who will disappear in a few hours makes you look at every second of the timing. Because there is nothing scarier than reality. 5 days after the video appeared online, some visitors to the Cecil Hotel begin to complain about the weak water pressure. Some note its strange taste and color. The first thing a hotel employee does in this situation is go to the roof. There are huge water tanks there. This is a small detail that many people outside the United States are familiar with from the view photos of New York. A slightly outdated water supply system of a tall building. Outside of New York, this is rather rare, but it still occurs. It was for this purpose that huge water tanks were located on the roof of the Cecil Hotel. On the 19th of February, hotel employee Cecil checks the contents of these barrels. The media immediately reports that a girl's body was found in one of them. 2 days later, the police officially confirm that the found body belongs to the missing or Slam. However, in this story, the discovery of the victim will give rise to many more questions and mysteries than her disappearance. The initial data are as follows. There were no security cameras on the roof of the Cecil Hotel, the door was not locked. But, according to the employees, there was an alarm system on it. In order to get the body, rescuers had to literally cut the tank from the bottom, as they could not climb there through the hole from above. That is, if it was a murder, then someone had to turn off the alarm, climb up the stairs to a 3-meter barrel, load the body there, and do it unnoticed, leaving no traces. If it was an accident, then the victim did it all by herself, somehow leaving herself without clothes. Her things were floating nearby in the same tank. After the discovery of the body, the internet investigation became truly large-scale. It was then that many learned about the strange fate of the Cecil Hotel, who by that time had already called the hotel by the name of death. At the beginning of the 2013th, the Cecil Hotel building was not 100 years old. During this time, his name was associated with several well-known crimes at once, with a dozen other incidents that were not so widely covered, but altogether created the reputation of a cursed place. Suicides, mysterious disappearances, murders, and serial maniacs. It sounds ordinary if you read the criminal chronicle. Strange if you read the history of the hotel. In the late 40s, there was a brutal murder of Elizabeth Short, also known by the nickname Black Orchid. This crime is considered one of the main mysteries in the criminal history of America. The killer was never found. There was information that on the night of the murder, Short went to the Hotel Cecil. And although some researchers say that the victim was seen in a neighboring building and not in the hotel itself, for many this coincidence is quite enough. In the 80s, Richard Ramirez settled in the hotel. His name will become known to the whole world after it turns out that he is a maniac named Night Hunter. Ramirez committed almost 24 violent crimes and kept the whole of Los Angeles at bay for more than a year. After the murders, he returned to the Cecil Hotel, but few people paid attention to a suspicious person. Because then there was real chaos in these walls. 7 years later, Jack Unterweger, an Austrian journalist who came to Los Angeles to write articles about the criminal situation in the city for an Austrian magazine, became a guest of the hotel. Jack lived at the Cecil Hotel and spent a lot of time on trips with the police. Later it turns out that Unterweger used these raids to choose his victims. A few years later, he will be sentenced to life imprisonment for the numerous murders of prostitutes. And these are only the most famous cases. For 90 years, dozens of tragic crimes have occurred in the hotel. All this only fueled the interest of internet detectives who were inclined to one thought. Alice Lam was murdered. Everyone was eagerly waiting for information from the police. The detectives responded with silence. A few weeks later, the case of Alice Lam ceased to interest journalists in this information vacuum. Participants in internet forums found increasingly suspicious details of what had happened. Tuberculosis became one of them. Around the same time that Alice Lam disappeared, a large outbreak of tuberculosis began in the area of the city, where the Cecil Hotel is located. And no one would have connected the two incidents with each other, if not for one small detail. The test that was used to identify the sick was called Lam Alice 1-in-1 as the name of the victim. A coincidence? I don't think so, the commentators on the forums counted. Immediately, some users remembered the movie Dark Water, or Dark Water, a Hollywood remake of the famous Japanese horror. In the story, the main character and her daughter move into an apartment in an old building and discover that the house is cursed. A ghost appears in a broken elevator, and dark water flows from the tap. When the heroine tries to find the reason with a specialist, they discover the body of the missing girl in a water tank on the roof. Many participants in the discussions on the forums noted that the hotel itself is directly related to the death of Alice Lam. Cecil is a cursed place, so they thought. After that, numerous YouTube bloggers moved into the building and tried to find traces of paranormal activity there. Many have noted that there is some kind of dark energy inside the hotel. Is it really Cecil who is the main culprit of all the crimes that happened there? In order to understand, we will have to move away from the Cecil Hotel and take a closer look at the area in which it is located. Walking through downtown Los Angeles in sunny weather between shining tall buildings and expensive bars and shops. It's pretty easy not to notice that you're next to the infamous Skid Row neighborhood. It is enough to move away from the Cecil Hotel some 300 meters, and you will see numerous blue tents. And the further away, the more of them there will be. Today, almost 5,000 homeless people live in this area of the city. Most of these people, in addition to money problems, have big problems with drug addiction and mental illness. How did it happen that a once thriving area of the city, in fact, became a ghetto for the homeless? A short story. Until the mid-19th century, Los Angeles was ruled by Mexico. This is still felt in the architecture of street names and restaurant menus. Then the territory became American. Crowds of people from the east coast of the country poured to the other end of the continent to work, and the railways helped them in this. Today, the train in the USA is rather an extravagant way of traveling, thanks to cars and airplanes, but 100 years ago, the situation was completely different. Most of the trains from the east arrived here in the Skid Row area. Many of the passengers were middle-class people, and it was for them that beautiful prestigious hotels began to be built, one of which was Cecil. An important detail is that not all of those who arrived by train in sunny California were respectable businessmen. Many passengers left from despair in search of a new life and prospects. While staying, they often found neither one nor the other. Someone rented cheap housing near the railway station, and someone spent the night right on the street. Built in the late 20s, the majestic building quickly lost its original gloss, and the representatives of the middle class were replaced by poor residents without work and without housing. Then the Great Depression began in the States, which only consolidated the reputation of Skid Row as an area that needs to be avoided. Along with the neighborhood, the Cecil Hotel was falling into disrepair. From a respectable place, it has turned into a building with cheap short-term rentals for disadvantaged segments of the population. By the 70s, the Los Angeles authorities decided to carry out a number of reforms in downtown. According to the project, many buildings, including in the Skid Row area, had to be destroyed, and shining skyscrapers built in their place. However, representatives of the community were against it and made a strong argument. If you destroy the Skid Row, then the homeless will begin to disperse to other areas, and as a result, many other Skid Rows will appear instead of one. The city authorities agreed. For the next 30 years, the police prevented the homeless from leaving the borders of Skid Row as much as possible. As a result, the area became a place of attraction for similar people, not only from all over Los Angeles, but also from other territories of the United States, a kind of ghetto for the homeless. By the year 2013, Hotel Cecil was trying to save face as best he could. The owners positioned it as a boutique hotel. And although most of them were still rented out to low-income residents of the district, the remaining part functioned as an ordinary two-star hotel, or rather even a hostel. Not an important service, but the price decided. In order to distance himself as much as possible from the dark past, Cecil Hotel even changed its name. Now it was called Stay on Main, and it was there that Alice Lam rented a room. In the context of history, it becomes clear that it was the dysfunctional guests who caused the sad reputation of the hotel. There weren't really any ghosts or dark energy in the Cecil Hotel. What really happened, there was a long list of short-sighted decisions of politicians, historical circumstances, and tragic coincidences. One of which is the identical name of the tuberculosis test with the name of the victim. Any epidemiologist knows that Lam-Fox is just a standard abbreviation of the test for determining tuberculosis, hiding behind a complex combination of chemical terms. It had nothing to do with the missing girl. Almost 6 months after the incident, the police announced the results of the investigation. According to them, the cause of death was drowning and bipolar disorder as a contributing factor. Psychiatrists also agreed with the conclusions of the police. In their opinion, Alice's behavior in the elevator is a vivid example of psychosis. The girl paranoidly presses buttons, looks for someone, and makes gestures with her hands. During the investigation, it turned out that Alice was taking medication due to bipolar disorder. At university, she had big problems in her studies. Judging by the blog entries, the girl hoped that a trip to the west coast of the United States would help reboot and solve her mental problems. All these explanations did not satisfy internet detectives who even years later continued to search for otherworldly forces and produce conspiracy theories. Yes, there are some reasons for this. First of all, it is still unclear how Alice went to the roof on her own and was able to climb onto a huge water tank. Why was the discovered body without clothes? Why were no substances found in the blood during the autopsy? We are unlikely to ever know the answers to all these questions. One of the policemen who worked on the case of Alice Lam said that they often used the principle of the razor eye in their work, explaining in simple words, if you hear the sound of hooves but do not see the source, it is preferable to think that it is a horse. And if you have proved that it is not a horse, proceed to the next option. Agree, a very useful principle at a time when conspiracy theories are multiplying for any reason. In the 2017 year, the Cecil Hotel was closed for reconstruction. 4 years later, the red ribbon was cut here again, but now an ordinary tourist will not be able to rent a room. All 600 apartments in this building are rented only to people with low incomes. Skid Row is still the epicenter of homeless life, and the city authorities are unlikely to be able to solve this problem in the coming years. And this means that the Cecil Hotel will get into the Criminal Chronicle more than once and confirm its title of the most cursed hotel in America.